Welcome to the Random City Podcast.
Chester Pepperpot! He was a pro! He never made it this far.
A competitor. He was very good.
Are you telling me that you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
Just listen to the old Pork Chop Express take his advice on a dark and stormy night.
A person is smart, people are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it.
When Godzilla's coming, y'all be tripping.
Where did you come from? From your blood.
I'm Groot. You will be.
You underestimate my power.
He's gonna be the third scariest thing on that train.
These guys come from legend. They're basically gods.
There's only one god, man, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
Hello, welcome back to the Random City Podcast. This is Jimmy in Georgia. I'm your host, as always, and we are back for another episode of the Random City Podcast. Today, I'm doing a little something slightly different. I'm trying to record a little bit of video. I don't know. I've had this whole idea of playing around with YouTube for a while, and who knows, I may do that briefly at least. And so, at least part of the show will be maybe on YouTube? I don't know. I've been posting the past few episodes on YouTube, and I may play around at least a little bit with adding actual footage. I don't know. I'm not sure. But I like the whole idea of YouTube. It's fun, it's interactive in lots of ways, and you can learn all sorts of cool stuff on there. I've been watching a lot of videos with Draw with Jazza. Jazza's from Australia, and he has all sorts of how-to videos. He explains how to use Copic markers, how to blend them, for example, is how I found him when I first started trying to use Copic markers earlier this year. He has all sorts of videos about designing characters, playing games, pretty much anything artistic related. And it's kind of interesting. I'd say check out Draw with Jazza if you haven't already and you're interested in some art stuff. Another thing I've been checking out on YouTube. YouTube, again, it's a fantastic resource. This week, and I was confused. This series of new animated shorts from Disney, Lucasfilm, The Forces of Destiny. I thought this was supposed to have been all released all at once on July the 3rd, based on what I had seen. But what's actually been happening, it seems like a daily thing. Every day, at least thus far, since the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, there have been new, short, animated videos released on Disney's YouTube channel. The first two featured Rey, and Rey, I don't know, I didn't like him, honestly, when it comes right down to it. I like Rey, she's fine. She was an interesting part of Force Awakens. But in the movie, we see one scene, her and BB-8 are going through the desert, it's twilight. This little creature pops its head up and looks around and goes back into the sand. And in the shorts, we find in that time span between them getting to her little home and that little scene there, this thing tried to eat BB-8, and it's basically a giant trimmer graboid that comes out of the sand, or it could be reminiscent from the worms from Dune, or really stretching it, maybe something from Beetlejuice. But either way, it doesn't seem very Star Wars to me. I don't know. So I didn't care for those first too much. Today, on July the 5th, as I'm recording, this will be released July 6th, the new episode came out with Leia versus some, well, not really Leia versus, Leia with Ewoks versus a couple stormtroopers. And that was pretty good. I liked it a lot better. The style is different. Very different from Clone Wars, very different from Rebels. It almost looks like a Flash animation. It looks very simple. I don't know, I like this third episode a lot. I still have some hope, because we'll definitely be seeing some interesting characters such as Ahsoka, Hera. Not sure about Maz. She does the voiceover, but I'm assuming there'll be an episode about Maz Kanata. But not sure. And then, so I guess by the time this comes out tomorrow, there'll be a new episode for you to enjoy if you go over to Disney's YouTube channel. I guess that's kind of all my random topics for random chatter, or whatever I call this first little part where I just talk about random stuff. So today's random selection, I've decided to call it, or random movie selection, whatever, is Spider-Man. And as we all know, Spider-Man does what a Spider-Man can. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to play a couple of clips from old podcast episodes. have it written down in my handy notebook here. Imagine that paper. I guess the folks at Dunder Mifflin were correct. We're not living in a paperless world. At least I'm not. Let's see here. Alright, we have 2 clips we're going to get into here in just a few moments. One from April 4th, 2011, episode 33 of the Random City Podcast. And one from October 4th, 2014, the 50th episode of the Random City Podcast. We're going to have a couple Random City flashbacks. And then after that, I'll come back on here live, so to speak, and give some reactions to what I said. But basically, I've already heard these clips, that's why I picked them out. And my opinions don't really change. Well, they can. They haven't in these cases. I like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man movies, especially number 2. Number 3 was a little convoluted. Kind of lost itself in a few places. Most people agree that it's not so good. Still made a lot of money. And then not number 2, but the second modern Spider-Man series with the 2 Andrew Garfield films. And at the time of both of these recordings, there had only been one of those. I think. Pretty sure that's correct. No. At the time of the first recording, there was talk of a new one. At the time of the second recording, both of the new ones had come out. So, there's that. But I liked Andrew Garfield. I thought he was a great Spider-Man. I thought he was a fantastic Spider-Man, actually. Peter Parker, I still probably like Tobey Maguire a little better. I don't know, what we see so far of Tom Holland from Civil War, I think he'll be a good Peter Parker and a good Spider-Man. So, that's good. So, I guess, after we take a listen to these clips, these flashbacks, we'll be right back with some more Random City Podcast. All right. Well, next up in our last topic of the day will be Spider-Man, which is the one I rewatched the first one, which was fun to see the gang as they were young again and stuff. And then, I don't know, I enjoyed the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. Sam Raimi, I thought, did a great job. I know people have issues with the third one, and I can understand where some of those are. But I still like those 3 movies. Definitely like the second one the best of the 3. And I know that's something you hear a lot about Spider-Man these days with the reboot going on right now. With I don't even know the guy playing Spider-Man, but I know Emma Stone is playing Gwen Stacy. But anyway, you hear a lot about that. You hear a lot about the $65 million fiasco that is Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. And that's just crazy stuff there. But anyway, Spider-Man, I watched the cartoons growing up. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Never really read very many of the Spider-Man comic books. I had a few when I was younger. Just like probably most kids back in the 80s. I would go down to like the Zippy Mart or whatever local little convenience store and look at the comic book rack. And if my mom would let me, I'd get a couple 75 cents or $1, whatever they were at the time. And so that was fun. I had a decent little comic collection back in the day. Mostly Transformers and G.I. Joe, because I was big in those TV shows. And then I had a few hero comics, Spider-Man or Superman, or I had a few Fantastic Fours, whoever. Wasn't really into any of them. I honestly didn't even read them most of the time. I just looked at the pictures, because I like to draw, and so I'd get a comic book, look at the pictures, maybe draw something out of it or whatever. But big fan of the Spider-Man movies. I'll watch the new one, see how it goes, and I don't know, it'll probably be okay. I don't know, I'm still not a fan of rebooting stuff so quickly. I don't know, like, it's only been a couple years since the last Spider-Man movie. I just feel like it needs to be like 5 years, 6 years, not 2 or 3 or whatever. But, hey, that's these people, that's their decision to make, just try to make some money off these, so. Booyah. Alright, number 4 for Jimmy and George's Top 10 Superheroes. Spider-Man. I really like Spider-Man. Growing up again earlier on my list, number 9 on my list is because of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. That was one of my favorite shows as a kid. I never really saw the live-action Spider-Man from, I think it was the 70s. I know there's some older Spider-Man cartoons too. I never really got into any of those. But I really enjoyed Spider-Man, Firestar, Iceman, You know, they would do adventures and fight the Green Goblin and whoever else, and then every once in a while, like Xavier would show up and stuff. It's a fun show, so that definitely exposed me to Spider-Man early on. And by the time the Tobey Maguire movies came out in the early 2000s, definitely was a big fan of Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2 is probably my favorite of those movies. And then Spider-Man 3, again, has issues. Probably trying to do a little too much. But, I mean, overall, I don't just completely hate it, but it definitely has issues, kind of like The Dark Knight Rises. Like, it's not, trash. It's not terrible, but it has problems. And the two new movies, Andrew Garfield, I enjoyed. The main thing I guess I don't like about those movies was his love interest, Gwen Stacy. If you know anything about the comic book, you would know what happens to Gwen Stacy. So the beginning, it's like, so when's that going to happen? And then going into a movie knowing that's going to happen kind of ruins it. Spoiler alert, there's no happily ever after there. And there never will be a happily ever after there. And so that, I don't know, I would like it better if they didn't follow the comics on some things. It's kind of like Walking Dead. It's like, I like The Walking Dead when it follows the comics to an extent, but it's nice when I don't know what's going to happen. Oh, there's a barn over there. Hey, guess what? 6 episodes from now, we'll find out there's some zombies in there. Well, I knew that as soon as they showed that barn, or whatever. I would have preferred it if Emma Stone was still available for Spider-Man 3. But I still liked it. It was good. It's not my decision. Hollywood does what they want. So, again, another thing with Spider-Man, the Ultimate Alliance game. But then also there was a few of those games from the early 2000s when those other movies were coming out. I remember having one. I think it was Spider-Man 2 for the GameCube. And I played that thing like a lot. You could just fly around New York City on your little webs and fight crime and stuff. It was fun. So, that was a couple of old episodes. Again, take a look at my piece of paper here. That was April 4th, 2011 from episode 33, which was called Dare for the Spider-Man. Interesting. And episode 50 called My Top 10 Superheroes. And at that time, I had marked Spider-Man as number 4. I thought it was interesting there. I was talking about the comic books and the drawing and things. That's something I mentioned, I think, in episode 65, like just last Thursday, I think, which is funny. Didn't have this all planned out ahead of time. It's very interesting. And then my thoughts are still kind of basically the same. I overall have really enjoyed Spider-Man movies. So tonight on IMAX here in town, there will be a screening of Spider-Man Homecoming, and I have not acquired tickets yet. Maybe they'll still be available when the time comes. Who knows? We'll see. Definitely looking forward to this movie after Civil War. And that's kind of, I guess, the main thing I want to talk about here. I've already talked about the other things from those other 2 clips from 3 and 6 years ago. The Tom Holland appearance in Captain America Civil War was kind of the show stealer, the scene stealer, the highlight of the film, whatever you want to call it. Just him becoming Spider-Man, and then just being kind of awesome, really, in the battle at the airport, stealing Cap's shield as the kind of secret weapon, and then really doing pretty well. I think it was against Falcon and Winter Soldier. I mean, it's cool, very good. And so I'm looking forward to Tom Holland's debut as the web slinger, as the full movie goes. And I think it's a good way to introduce these characters. I think maybe they should think about this more in the future. I think they've done a good job of that with Black Panther. His new movie, his trailer looks awesome. And we, again, got him in Civil War. So we're getting that introduction, easing them into the role. And then when their new movie comes out, it's a lot better than just saying, oh, here's the Black Panther you've never heard of. Because, that's a character not a lot of people are familiar with or weren't probably prior to Civil War. So, great job, Marvel. Kevin Feige, good thinking, brother. I don't know what else to say, honestly. I'm looking forward to Spider-Man. I think I've said that. I like the previous ones. Amazing Spider-Man 2 had some issues, apart from Gwen Stacy dying. Amazing Spider-Mans were good, though. I like both of those. I thought this podcast would last longer. Oh, well, it'll be short and sweet. I'll reset episode on Monday. All right, well, I guess that's going to, wrap us up a little early here. I haven't really done any research, but I assume there's probably some kind of Spider-Man related novel or novelizations out there for at least the movies, if nothing else. And if so, they're probably over on audible.com. And so if you sign up through audible.randomcitypodcast.com, which takes you to Amazon. You got 2 free audiobooks, and those are yours to keep no matter what, even if you cancel your subscription. And I think I mentioned on the last episode, I just finished up Armada by Ernest Cline's great book. I haven't made my current selection yet. I have a credit available, and I've been trying to choose which would be the next one. Like I listened to Ender's Game last year. I was thinking, well, maybe the second Ender's Game book. I listened to 1 Second After a year or so ago, and I was thinking, well, maybe 1 year after might be good. I don't know. There are several books I'm interested in, but I have not pulled the trigger and chose my monthly selection for this month for Audible. But I will do that soon, and I'm sure at some point I'll probably at least mention it here on the show. And sure, here at the end of the show, I do want to mention all the random ways you can get in contact with the Random City Podcast. You can do that via email. Email us at randomcitypodcast@gmail.com. You can call or text the show at 773-71-RANDOM. You can subscribe, like, whatever, the show on iTunes, on Satchel Player, Google Play, and then under the Jimmy and Georgia banner in Stitcher. And now I have been uploading these on YouTube, so you can subscribe and like on YouTube. That'd be great. And you can also go to the Jimmy and Georgia YouTube page, which I have set up a long time ago. I haven't ever really used. I'm trying to use that a little bit now. And I've been making playlists of the other YouTube channels I have. I have a YouTube channel called Jimmy's Toys, where I posted a few, not very many, but a few Lego builds from like the Lego Dimensions sets. Most recently, maybe a week ago, I posted the Goonies Lego Dimensions time-lapse build. And so I've been trying to do some branding or whatever you want to call it on YouTube, making that stuff look a little more appealing. And I've kind of collected? Wow, that's a made-up word. Kind of collected them all on my Jimmy and Georgia YouTube page, which you can get to just by going to youtube.com/Jimmy and Georgia. And so there's a few things there. One thing that's there, several years ago, I made a video for Steve Glosson from the Golaverse, from Big Honkin' Show, Geek Out Loud, all those things. He wanted for his birthday that year Baby Animal set to St. Elmo's Fire. And that's my most popular video thus far on YouTube. So if you want to see Baby Animal set to the 80s classic St. Elmo's Fire, go to youtube.com/Jimmy and Georgia. And then you can also follow us on Twitter at Jimmy Georgia or at Random City. You can follow us on Instagram at Jimmy and Georgia or at Random City Podcast. And there's a few other things out there, but those are the ones I use. And I guess that kind of wraps us up, and we'll play around with everything and see how this all goes. And there may be some video. There will be a video for sure of this episode. There may be some actual video footage in this video. All the rest of the videos have just been like a static image. And so that could be fun. And so until next time, I guess this is going to be an extra short episode. So until next time, I'm Jimmy and Georgia. Peace.